Thanks. So I'll just give a little bit of an intro, and then I'll go ahead and get started with you. So, yes, this is the very first episode of Beyond the Rough Draft. So thank you so much for being the very
Of
first guest.
course.
It's a series that I decided to start because I've been fighting through the chaos of my own romantic draft, and writing can feel like such a solo mission.
Yeah.
And you always assume that you're just doing it on your own. So, in each episode moving forward, I will definitely be talking to different writers and authors such as yourself and about how they manage the messy parts of creativity. Because I feel like if anyone can get past whatever obstacle you're going through, whatever struggling writer may be able to hear this and realize that they can do it themselves. So I will just jump in and read a little bit about your bio. So Amandeep Ahuja is the author of The Frustrated Women's Club, a book that captures the chaos, comedy, and catharsis of modern womanhood. A consultant by day and storyteller by heart, she navigates the world of geopolitics while secretly plotting her next literary adventure. So again, thanks so much for being on. And I just before we start, in terms of like the questions and everything regarding your struggles and deeper dive into writing, I just wanted to know a little bit more. Could you give me a little bit more background regarding your book and what it was that inspired it? What it's about?
Sure. I actually started writing when I was a child. I was 11 when I first wrote a piece of poetry, and it was inspired from really a lesson in school, which was it's not something that you hear often when teachers or lessons inspire you. So that was, I think, just a very important turning point in sort of a self-discovery journey.
Yeah.
That was when I discovered my love for poetry, for writing, and also for journaling, because around that time was when we were in English lessons, we were discussing journal writing, and in history we were learning about Anne Frank, and so her diary became such an important part of self-expression when you're young. That was kind of the beginning of my writing journey, and I had kind of decided at about the age of 14, 15 that I wanted to write something, like leave a piece of fiction behind just to be identified with.
Mhm.
I had zero idea what it's going to be about, but I knew that I wanted to write something.
Yeah.
And then, when you grow up and kind of life gets in the way, you discover priorities in your career and your life. And so that writing bit just took a bit of a step back.
Yeah.
But it kind of came back when around the age of, I would say, 24, when, with brown parents, it's the whole, you're a certain age now, and so you need to think about settling down. You've got your career sorted out, so let's think about maybe getting the whole marriage and children thing. So that started at that age. And I was still journaling. So from the age of 11 until now, actually, to like literally last night, I have been journaling very, very regularly. So because I had been journaling about this whole experience, a lot of those entries really made me laugh when I would look back at them. And so I thought, this is an opportunity to really, kind of fictionalize what I'm experiencing, because I'm sure I'm not the only one, and to just make it available in a way that people can relate to. And so that was the beginning of the concept of the Frustrated Women's Club. So the Frustrated Women's Club really talks about not just this one part of the culture of brown people or Asian people.
Mhm.
It's about identity. When you've been in a place like Dubai, for example, where it's everyone is together, and it's sort of hard to identify with just one culture. And so when people say, "Oh, don't you want to do this thing that is of such significance to our culture?" and then you're forced to wonder, what is my culture? Do
Yeah.
I really care about this as much? Because do I care about this part of my culture? What is my culture? So that question of culture and identity is one part of it, and then societal expectations was another one that was really key for me. And someone actually asked me the other day, who were you when, or no, hang on, let me think about it. It was a very specific question. It was a wonderful question. Who were you before you became who you are right now?
Oh.
And and she wanted to talk about, who I was expected to be. And I thought that was such a powerful question, because who people would expect me to be, or who society would expect me to be, is a completely different version of me. And who I am right now is not someone that anyone would have ever expected in at least, like in my circle, my family, my immediate kind of societal and cultural setting. So I just wanted to make sure that there's some way of getting that message out to people in my age group, in my in a situation that is similar to mine, to just tell them, hey, you're not alone. We're kind of all in this together, and this is our Frustrated Women's Club. So that was kind of how the book came about.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I definitely understand in terms of like societal pressures and things like that. I mean, I think right now it's getting a little bit better. Women are marrying later and having kids later. But I mean, I come from a Mexican background where I know that back then, like if you weren't married at the age of 24 and had like maybe 5 or 6 kids, people would ask, well, why aren't you married yet? And I'm like, and I just turned 40 now, and it's like I'm still single with no kids. So like, it's definitely I definitely feel like in that sense I've been lucky in because my parents haven't really pressured me to be like, well, when are you getting married? When are you having kids? So I know that there are a lot of independent women out there that can fold because of societal pressures, and they definitely shouldn't. I mean, they should just, if they're happy as they are, they should definitely continue that and just kind of shut that noise down.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I did want to know about a little bit more regarding you and your process. When you were young, you already mentioned that you've been journaling for a really long time.
Yeah.
Did you feel like you were pretty much being supported in your creativity in your household, or was it a little bit more of a struggle?
No, it was never a struggle. I would definitely have to acknowledge the fact that I'm quite lucky that way, because a lot of times when you're expressing the truth about something, it can come with a bit of a backlash, but that never happened to me, luckily. So when I started writing poetry, it was well received in the family, and when I started writing the book, to be honest, I kind of kept it a secret because I wasn't sure if it's going to be good enough. So that was kind of the self-doubt creeping in. So within my house, the only person who was doubting me was me. And I think a lot of writers can relate to that as well. But yeah, I kind of kept it a secret when I was just starting to write the book. And then when it came out, then it was well received. And then it was like, that's something nice that you've done. So well done on that. Yeah. So luckily that was a good kind of, just a well received idea.
And you touch a bit about your main character dating, right?
Yes.
Around her parents.
So the dating stories, I do get this a lot, is like, is this based on my life? It's actually not based on my life. It's just inspired from some people that I have met. But when you're writing, you just get this license to exaggerate things, and just a creative license to just make things funnier, or make things seem a certain way just for the plot. So it has definitely been, some aspects of each of the characters has definitely been inspired from real life. But that was an interesting thing for my family to look at, because again, they were imagining that this is my life. And so I actually remember my brother stopped reading it because he was like, no, this is too much. I don't need to know these many details about your life. I think he got through to chapter 3 or something, and then he was like, no, I'm giving up. With my sister, she read through the whole book, but she did mention that it was a little bit awkward for her. And then I think it was similar for my parents as well when they read. My father thought, this is Frustrated Women, so this isn't exactly. I'm not the target audience for this, so I'm gonna be proud of you. I'm gonna be happy for you, but I'm not gonna read it. And then my mother read a bit of it, and she said, "Oh, this is getting to be a little bit much. I don't want to know this stuff." So it was sort of like classic, the way that brown parents receive things, a little bit awkward and a little bit kind of this is a normal kind of situation. So it was interesting to see people's reactions, but writing it was equally interesting because it was, inspired from the people that I had met, inspired from the people that my friends had met. So you know how you get together with your friends and you just talk about funny people that you interact with, and then that just creates a character for you. So for writers, I think it's so important to keep that eye out for these details, because you never know where you're going to get a character. It sounds a bit like, you're always keeping your eye out for creating content, but it's not like that. It's just, you're just keeping your eye out for interesting details, and
Hmm.
and just it just keeps things so much more interesting and so much more alive.
Yeah. I mean, if you're talking about dating and how difficult it is, I mean, you definitely touched on something there because yeah, dating. I was gonna say dating here is like, but
It's a bit.
dating all over the world is kind of, but
It is, yeah.
here since it's so many different cultures and things like
Yeah.
that, it's for me it's still the biggest culture shock moving here to Dubai. It's the whole dating thing. I sometimes I'm just like, I don't understand why you do
Yeah.
this. So yeah.
That's so interesting, because you would think, for a lot of people moving here, they think they're moving into a very conservative area. And when you finally do make that move, you realize it's actually not conservative at all. In fact, it's
Mm,
quite out there.
yeah,
And
yeah.
you have to be a certain level of progressive to be able to match up to that. And so I completely understand why it's a bit of a culture shock.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah. So what scares you more most about writing? Like what scared you maybe most about writing this book or in your journey as a writer as a whole?
So in this particular book, it was very, very close to my heart. It was my first project. It was written at a time that was a little bit emotionally difficult for me. So I personally kind of tuned out all of the negative voices. For me, it was just a project that I was working on for myself. And so I just wrote it down. I sent it to the publisher, and I was like, I'm going to accept whatever I get from them. Um, but this is something that I am quite proud of, as something that I have created. So for this particular book, luckily I didn't face any kind of negativity from, like internal negativity. But in my writing journey, I feel like I have to really tune out those voices that tell me that I'm not as funny or as creative as I think I am. And it's always internal voices. It's never anyone else telling you that you're not a good writer, because others will read your work and be like, oh my God, that's so relatable. Oh my God, that's so me. Um, so it's really just your own voices. And so I think where internal validation fails in this instance, then it's definitely external validation that you have to go for, anything to calm those voices. So I think for me, like a trusted group of peer editors, so trusted close friends who can tell me if something is not well written, and then there's no hard feelings behind it. It's just a friend to a friend saying this is your best piece of work and you can definitely do something better than this. And equally, if it's something that's well written, they can appreciate that. So I think that's been one kind of learning for me, that if I do have these voices telling me that this isn't a good piece of writing, then I should just have someone tell me that it is good enough.
Yeah.
When your own voice fails, then someone else's can come around.
Hmm. Yeah, I always feel like, of course, we're always the hardest on ourselves.
Yeah, yeah,
I always think I can't push forward, and then I finally push forward the chapter that I was the most terrified to write, and then I'm like, oh, it
yeah,
wasn't so bad.
yeah,
But then I constantly have to do this, even though I know it wasn't that bad.
yeah,
Next chapter comes along, that fear takes over again. So
yeah.
yeah, it's just a continuing process that in terms, especially when it comes to you, it seems you just need to get outside voices to help you realize that you are good enough to be able to push forward each step.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Can you describe your writing process and what it looks like on the good and bad days?
Oh, on a good day, it just flows. Um,
Do
yeah,
you have much of those? Do you have a lot of good days, which
no.
is okay.
um, but I think, the way that writing is, and I think it's true for every creative act, be it music or just creating anything, you
Yeah.
do have good and bad days. And the good days, they are beautiful. You plan this. I have planned so many days when I feel like, oh, I'm going to go to the beach. I'm going to have a nice coffee with me. I'm going to write down the most beautiful thing that I've ever written. And most of the time, it just turns into beach coffee, and then I'm just journaling, because nothing for me is working plot wise.
Okay.
But when it does flow, then it's beautiful. Then it's like 2 to 3 hours of just words flowing. And to be honest, I don't think that there's any recipe for that. For the bad days, I feel like there is a way to counter any kind of writer's blocks and things like that. And the key is literally just to keep writing, even if it's absolute rubbish, just to keep writing. And this is something that a lot of other writers have said as well. I've been on a few writing workshops and a few writing exercises that I've done with people who've been in the industry for a while, and they always say the key is to just keep writing. If it's rubbish, it's rubbish. Then you edit it out.
Yeah.
But if it's not rubbish, then you can keep it and you can modify it, or you can just work with it, however it is. So for those good days, when they come, they'll come, and you'll know exactly how to work with them. With the bad days, if you're set on a deadline to finish something, then you'll just have to kind of take that leap and just believe that whatever you're writing, even if it is rubbish, can be molded into something else. And eventually, so actually one exercise that my publisher actually got me into is writing morning pages. She calls it morning pages because it's the first thing that she does, but for me it turns into like pages just before I want to write something. So it's literally just 15 minutes or 3 pages of writing whatever comes into your head. And you're not pausing or anything. You're literally just writing whatever comes into your head, and it just frees up your brain a little bit. So that initial kind of roadblock before you start writing something goes into things that don't really matter, so that by the time you get to your plot, your brain is in kind of full force and you've got that bit of energy going in. And another thing that I do is, which I didn't do for my first book, which I am doing right now, is creating that outline of the plot.
Okay.
And just kind of having some direction as to where I'm going with a story, because a lot of times we can just get sidetracked and it doesn't fit with the plot and then it has to be removed. But what I'm working on right now is always having an outline, and that outline can change as well. It's not set in stone. So I revise it every 3 months to see if I'm still happy with the flow of the story or if there's anything else that I'd like to add. So yeah, having that kind of guiding force also really helps.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, I also heard of, I think it's by Julia Cameron, right? The Art This Way, the morning pages.
Oh, is that where it's from? Oh.
Yeah, I heard of it before. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a morning person at all. So for me, it would be evening pages.
Yeah.
I only did it once, and then I was like, I feel like my life is so boring. Even if no one reads it, I just felt kind of self-conscious about that. But I definitely feel now that obviously if you write something before you get into the book, it would definitely warm up that creative muscle more.
100%. And I do that even at work, because a lot of my full-time work requires writing. So sometimes if I'm stuck and if my brain doesn't work, then I just do 3 pages, and suddenly, the muscles are warm and work can come out.
Yeah, it's a lot easier. Sometimes when you see the blank page and the cursor just blinking, then you're like, no.
Yeah.
But once you've already gotten into it, yeah, it's a lot easier. So then when you're stuck or overwhelmed, that's basically what you do? You just do like the morning pages?
Yeah, either that or I just leave the project alone for a bit and I work on something else. One of the things that I really enjoyed doing is people watching, and I ended up creating 2 short stories out of just people watching, and they were so random as well. There was one time when I was sitting in a Starbucks and a man was passing by and he looked a little bit kind of flushed, and so I ended up writing a short story about a man who is in some kind of underhand dealings and he's carrying a lot of cash on him, and that's why he looks flushed. And then there was another one that I wrote when I was sitting in a restaurant and I was just watching the bartender create his drinks, and he looked so effortless as he did it. And so I created a story about kind of his background and his life. And it was just a very good experience in getting out of that plot that you were originally working on and just seeing things from a completely different perspective, from a completely different character's perspective as well. So it really does free up your brain quite a lot.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, especially I feel like, because do you drive to work or do you take the metro to work?
I drive.
Okay, because I feel like I take the metro, and yes, I mean, if I was really people watching, which unfortunately I don't, because I basically sleep in the morning. But if I wasn't, that would be really good material, because you're constantly going in and out of the metro, using them as your takes or interesting quirks that your characters have in your books. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So then that's basically in terms of the morning pages and just leaving it alone. Would you say that those are basically like your rituals when you feel like the inner critic is coming up, or do you have any other rituals that you do?
No, I think those are actually those 2, and also reading. I think as writers, we forget about the importance of reading, especially critical reading.
Mhm.
And, you know, it doesn't have to be like a big novel that you're reading
Mhm.
to critically analyze it, even if it's just short stories. Um, from an editorial perspective, when you look at it, again, it puts your brain into motion in a different way than it would be when you're writing. So I think that is something that I do less often than I would do the morning pages or writing about something completely different. Um, this is something that I would kind of do as an absolute last resort because it it just does come to me as the last thing. But when you're reading and you're looking at the way that other writers are approaching certain topics, it gives you room to experiment with other styles of writing, and that frees up your brain as well. But definitely, I think as writers, we sometimes neglect reading ourselves.
Yeah.
So I would definitely suggest that is something that we should make some time for every day. I was actually part of a book club. And still am with them actually. But what they did was like a reading challenge. And so 25 minutes every day, any point of the day, you're going to be reading something and you're going to report back to the WhatsApp group to say that you have read this. And it was a great way to keep each other accountable, just to build that reading habit. And everybody was so pleased with it at the end of it, like, oh, I feel like I have actually done something productive instead of streaming Netflix. And I feel like a little bit richer in my brain. So, one medium of creativity definitely feeds into another.
Yeah.
So I think that's another great way of getting out of it. I think these three are the key things that I do. Basically, I think it's just a way of distracting your brain from the those kind of negative voices that are telling you that this plot isn't good enough, that the way that you've written this is not good enough. I think, yeah, just finding that distraction. So it could be different for different people. For me, it's these three things. um, I think I would definitely stick by journaling as the number one way of getting
Mhm.
out of this. So those morning pages are, I would say, the best way of getting out of it, because it's just your brain and you stuck in a room and just kind of hashing it all out
Yeah.
and having those difficult conversations with yourself. I
Mhm.
think it's a great way of freeing up your brain.
Yeah. Have you also done maybe like interviews maybe with like your own main character? Have you ever
I
did you
have done one, yes. I did it for a blog post. It was
Oh,
yeah. So have you read The Frustrated Women's Club?
no, I haven't. No.
So so the protagonist is called Alia, and she
Mhm.
has sort of an alter ego called Sassy Alia.
Okay.
And what I did for Valentine's Day was I interviewed Alia and Sassy Alia together. And so Sassy Alia is basically just like, it's just a voice in Alia's head
Mhm.
who's been sassy in her past, who is a version of Alia who's a little bit more assertive, and as her name suggests, she's quite sassy. And
Mhm.
the people who have read the book, they really enjoyed Sassy Alia's commentary because she says things as Alia sees them, but Alia doesn't have the guts to say
Mhm.
the kind of the reality of it. So Sassy Alia is outspoken and she's just lovely. She's who I aspire to be in my real life. So I did do an interview with Alia and Sassy Alia on Valentine's Day, and it was just like Alia saying, "Oh, but Valentine's Day is so nice," and Sassy Alia is just like, "Oh, but don't you think it's so commercial? And why are we even celebrating it?" So it was an interesting piece. So yeah, that was the one time that I had that interview experience.
Okay. Okay. And then in terms of like where you're talking about with reading and with books and helping you move past those hurdles and obstacles, do you read only in the genre that you write? Is that the only, or do you read broadly and that also helps?
Oh, definitely broadly. Because I'm not even 100% sure what my genre is.
Okay.
It was classified as young adult when it first came out. Um, but in my head, young adult is like Twilight.
Hmm.
And so I didn't feel like I related to it. But I also didn't relate to romance because that's not what the point was of
Yeah.
my book. So yeah, I wasn't 100% sure what my genre is. But I think, yeah, just reading generally is very, very helpful, especially reading other genres, because it exposes you to ways of writing that your particular genre wouldn't. So if you were to read thriller or even historical fiction, books by Elif Shafak, for example, they're incredibly poetic. And that's just a way of writing that not a lot of younger authors, or like authors in my generation, would do, because Elif Shafak comes from a background where she speaks Turkish and English, and Turkish as a language is very, very poetic. But people who have experience only writing in English, they're probably not going to be thinking in a poetic sense. So, or another one, The Beekeeper of Aleppo, I can't remember the name of the author, but that was again another one that was written in such a poetic way because they were literally translating what someone would say in Arabic. And again, Arabic is such an incredibly poetic and beautiful language. So you have those kind of romantic elements of languages that you translate into English that you wouldn't get to see in your own genre.
Yeah.
Necessarily anyway. So, definitely broad range of books can be read.
Was there a particular author or a particular book that you may have been trying to emulate a little more than others when you were writing the Frustrated Women's Club, or no?
No, I think at that point, definitely it was just my own voice that I was trying to find. And I was trying to keep it very conversational. And it was also the way that it's written is meant to be, for a blog. So it's kind of like the protagonist Alia is writing a blog, and that's how it is. So it's very conversational. The language is very, very straightforward. That's why people say that it's a very easy read, because it's like having a conversation with someone.
Yeah.
But again, that is for Alia. That is how she functions.
Yeah.
But when I've written other short stories, then when I write other short stories, then I kind of want the essence of this region to come out a little bit. And again, that's writers' preferences. For me, this region is quite valuable to me. I see this as my home because this is where I grew up. This is where I spent a majority of my life, and so I want the essence of this region to come through. So things like warmth amongst people, hospitality is a big thing here, a sense of community instead of sense of individual. So I feel like those things are essential for me to bring out. But again, for different writers, it's very, very different.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what would you say are your writing strengths, and where do you still feel challenged, and how do you work on those? Well, the challenges, I'm assuming, in terms of those mantras and the rituals that you mentioned before. But what are your weaknesses when it comes to writing, and your strengths?
So strengths, I know this because I have asked people repeatedly for this because, again, voices telling you, oh, you're not a very good writer. I don't know why.
You're bad at everything.
Yeah. So two things that I think I have been good at. One would be bringing a sense of humor to writing. I mean, of course, for a lot of people, this is a way of this is like a coping mechanism for a lot of people when they've had some kind of trauma or some kind of issues. They're just funny, and that's that's kind of how my writing also evolved. Not to say that I've had some kind of big trauma, but it's you just have things that you cope with in a different way, and so that kind of is how the comedy became a part of my writing. And the other, I think I really enjoy bringing an immersive sense to my writing. So being able to tell people exactly how the scene looks. So, for example, in the Frustrated Women's Club, there are scenes when Alia is driving from Dubai to Abu Dhabi, and so bringing that kind of transition from the huge skyline of Dubai to nothingness in the desert, and then the Abu Dhabi kind of suburbs come to life. So that is something that I like to bring to life as well. Or things like when she's eating her mother's food, then how that taste links with her childhood. Bringing that taste into people's minds is something that I quite enjoy doing. So that kind of immersive method of writing is something that I really enjoy, which I believe is my strength. In terms of weaknesses, I think the depth of emotion, sometimes I feel like I don't really express right away.
Yeah.
So, for example, if someone's in shock, I know they're in shock, and there'll be, it's like some kind of commentary about that shock, but it just doesn't come out as much to the reader. So this is something that I counter through something called a writer's circle that I'm part of. So it's just like a group of people. We get together every month, we do some writing, we share what we've written, and then they give their feedback. So this was a bit of feedback that I received from someone to say that I understand that they're in shock, but maybe that shock could be highlighted a little bit more. And since receiving that feedback, I've seen that I actually struggle with that expression of emotion, even across other emotions as well. So I would say that is something that I have struggled with.
Okay. Yeah, for me I think I would probably say the same thing. Especially when it comes to like my main character right now, she's just feeling so much.
Mhm.
Sometimes I felt in the beginning I was kind of skirting over her really deep rooted thoughts and everything. And my mentor was telling me, I'm not really understanding what's going on here. You need to dig deeper. And I feel like sometimes doing that, it just really drains me. Like really getting into her head all the time because she's so consistently troubled.
Yeah.
How did you feel when it came to maybe like the troubling parts of like your main character and having to really dig deep? Did you also feel like you need to take a step back sometimes?
Ah, there we go.
Ah,
Sorry.
yeah.
I think there was a bit of a lag. Um, yeah, I think with with like the last instance of writing where I struggled with that expression of emotion, I just had to really go back to the root of what was causing that emotion, and revisit that connection, and that really then brought it out. But I think there's also a bit of fear amongst us as writers when we're writing something we feel like some, or maybe this is just me, but sometimes I feel like this might be a bit over dramatic. So should I be writing this at all? And I think we our job is just to write.
Yeah.
Ours is not an editorial job. If it doesn't fit the script or if it doesn't fit that scene, then the editor is going to take it out anyway. So I think for us, the job is just to write everything that we're thinking, everything that we think the character's feeling, even if it's dramatic, even if it's over the top. Then I think we should just write it out,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then we also have to remember that too. I mean, I know that in the back of my head, I don't need to write a perfect manuscript. I mean,
Exactly.
that's the point of writing. The beauty of it is that you can always change it, but
Yeah.
you still have that imposter syndrome sometimes in the way. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's tricky, isn't it? Because we're always so judgmental of ourselves when others, even if something isn't perfect, no one's going to come back and say, oh, this was so rubbish because of this one thing that you wrote. People are always going to look at the overall picture and then say, this was amazing. However, I have a few points and we can work on this together. So
Yeah.
it's so tricky to be kind to ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah. And has the writing journey looked different than what you expected? Like what has surprised you the most in terms of your writing journey?
I guess it didn't surprise me, but it just wasn't something that I ever thought about. But the writer's journey is very isolating.
Yeah.
You do work with an editor when you go down the publishing route and things like that. But it is ultimately you, and it can be a little bit isolating. But again, as writers, we are introverted people. We are people who kind of look deep within our own souls. So it's something that is very difficult to navigate. But yeah, I think that was the thing that it just wasn't something that I ever thought about until it hit me.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I always assumed I was like, oh, no one has imposter syndrome as bad as I do. And
Yeah.
then I finally go into a room full of people and they're like, imposter syndrome, we all have it.
Yeah, so if you ever walk into so we have these like yearly dinners with the authors that the publisher has published, and every single person has had some version of imposter syndrome, which was actually funny because my editor always tells people that I was the one with the least amount of it,
Oh,
which was very surprising to me because when I wrote the book and when it was going through its editorial process and everything, I was in such a difficult emotional state. So I would have thought that I would have been the worst one, but she said no. She just, she handed in the manuscript, she did the editorial work, and then she just waited for the publication date, and that was it. I was like, well, isn't that what most people do? No, people keep messaging me to say, oh, I feel like this part could have been done differently, or that could have been done differently, but you just kind of accepted it as it was, and then you just let things unfold.
wow.
But in my own mind, she doesn't know that there were these questions like, oh, I'm going to have to, appear in front of people. I'm going to have to tell my friends and family about it. They're going to think like, oh, but what makes her capable of publishing anything at all? So, there's different versions of that imposter syndrome.
Yeah, there definitely are. Yeah, you always assume, I mean, at least I did. I always assumed that there was just specifically like one version. And then
Yeah,
it's like, oh, there's so many different tiers to
yeah,
it. So,
yeah,
I
definitely.
mean, do you write every single day?
No. I mean, I journal every single day or most days, but writing doesn't come every day because I feel like I wanna clear up space in my head to be able to fully be invested in that piece of writing. So it's more of a weekend thing.
So then, like, other than reading and doing like your morning pages, is there something that you maybe hear, or maybe something that you maybe listen to that inspires you to just want to sit down and write at that very moment, or like,
Not for me, but I have like I do know that other writers listen to podcasts of meditation and just like their favorite uh, motivational podcast speakers that they listen to. I think a lot of people just have um, th- yeah, just different ways of coping with that block or that negativity. So for me, it's the journaling and the morning pages that are part of the journaling and the writing something else or the reading. For a lot of people, it's just meditating, bit of quiet time, bit of calming themselves. That really works for a lot of people. I feel like I should now give that a try to see if that works.
yeah. And what's one mind shift or two that maybe helped you to stay committed to your writing? Like for me, I would say if I have deadlines, that definitely helps me to stay committed. Like if I have obviously a publisher, even if I have like all these inner thoughts of, oh, your writing is absolute crap. I'm on a deadline. Someone is really interested in reading my book. That kind of helps me to push forward. Would that be the same for you, or are there any other kind of like mind shift tools that you use in terms of apart from the rituals and the mantras?
It's actually the same for me as well. It's just that accountability factor because at the end of the day, we're human beings and we need someone to look over us. So that definitely really helps. But I think also conversely, not having a deadline, not having that pressure also really helps because if you're under that pressure, then you're going to feel like you have to put down whatever comes into your head, even if it's not the best piece of writing, which again is going to kind of reignite that feeling of not being a good writer, which
Mhm.
is counterproductive. So, yeah, at the same time, not having a deadline, not putting that pressure on yourself. I always tell people, like, don't chase the publication date, always chase the completion of your manuscript because if
Mhm.
you attach a date to it, then it's going to be work that you've done under pressure instead of work that you've done under inspiration. Um, so I think both of these work. And it's different times for both of these to work as well. A lot of the times, we have the story in our heads, but we're just wasting our time telling ourselves that the way that I'm approaching the story isn't good enough. And so that can easily be countered when you've got that publication deadline. But if you've got a publication deadline and you don't know what sort of plot you're going for, or what the next step is for your character, then that kind of reduces the inspiration side of things and gives rise to the pressure, which could be then counterproductive.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And so what would you say to someone who's kind of feeling alone in their like writing struggle right now?
That loneliness is very, very normal, but you can always find other people who are on a similar journey and to just have those conversations with them. And even if it's just sitting in the same room with them and writing, that can really help. You could be writing about completely different things, and all you do is, just like get together in a cafe and write quietly for an hour and a half or something like that. And that is it. And you can just share with each other at the end of it what you've written. And if you don't want to share, that's fine as well. But it's just something that has given you a bit of a drive to do more writing and to know that there's someone else who's kind of holding their hair and just being like, I don't know what to do next with my character. So it gives you that bit of community,
Yeah.
which really helps. Yeah. So I think that's what I have done, which has really helped. So I feel
Mhm.
like that and that because that's worked for me, I always recommend it to other people as well.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of writing communities now where you
Yeah.
can go and do like I've done quite a few. Like you just go in and you're in the group full of writers, and for 50 minutes you're together but writing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You're alone together essentially.
yes, alone together. Yes,
Yeah. And
essentially.
it's a lot of people do that with people will get together, just read together, have a coffee, and just read in silence. A
Mhm.
lot of people will bring their laptops and they'll be working in silence. People will do some writing. So I think it's just people who want to do these kind of isolation or isolatory activities, but not be isolated at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. And okay, so you were mentioning before that you were currently writing something. So what is that you're currently working on?
So I've got two projects that I'm working on at the moment. One is a poetry collection that is almost wrapped up. But I'm currently in my I don't know if this is good enough stage. So I'm just looking through these pieces of poetry and seeing, is there anything that I can change to make them more acceptable to me? If the answer is no, then I'm just going to send them through. If there is something that I can change, then I will make those changes. That is one that is actually very, I think it's a very special piece for me, just because, again, it is inspired by the region. It's something that I haven't written before, not for publication anyway. It brings together nature, or nature specific to this region. So the beauty of the desert, things like the Red Sea, for example, Ramadan, how beautiful that is. So all of those things kind of tying together into one feeling of love. That is something that I've been quite excited about. And the other is a sequel to my first book. So
Oh,
that
okay.
should be hopefully that should be an exciting project. But this one I'm excited about because in the first one, the character is young and incredibly selfish and incredibly whiny, as we all are when we're young. And now she's growing and maturing. And so she's beginning to live with adult feelings and emotions, like what happens when your friends move on and, have more priorities than you,
Yeah.
bigger priorities like children or moving jobs or having partners and things like that. So I'm excited to see her growing up as well.
Yeah. And so then when you wrote the first book, did you always imagine it would have a sequel or no?
No, I didn't think I would have a sequel at all, but a few people said we want to know what happens to her. So I thought, well, that could be interesting. So why not? Let's give it a try.
Yeah. And like what type of genre do you usually like when you get ideas to write, what kind of genre do you usually gravitate towards?
Oh, I have extremes. So I have one, I have this one where it's like humor and it's relatability, and this sort of the young adult space that I had my first book in. And then otherwise, I have like I did attempt one project that I had then abandoned because it wasn't going anywhere. It was sort of historical fiction, so it was related to the partition of the Indian subcontinent,
Oh,
and a grandmother story. Again, that was something that I was very excited about, but the amount of research that was going into it, I just felt like I didn't have enough time and resources to dedicate to it, so it wouldn't have been, my kind of best foot forward. And the way that I've described the poetry as well, it's not something that links with the Frustrated Women's Club at all. It's just it's sort of like a love letter to the region. So it's yeah, it's completely different from what I've done in the past. So yeah, it's like either incredibly emotionally sensitive or just completely TikTok related. Kind of, if that makes sense. The kind of stuff that people find very, very relatable.
okay.
Yeah.
And have you ever thought, or did you ever think that maybe down the line you'd want to venture into, I don't know, like horror or psychological thriller or fantasy or sci-fi or anything like that? Or
I have tried it. I actually, it was so weird. I had a dream once that this person that I know and another person who does, and they don't know each other. They are in the same room, and there's this whole backstory behind them. And I thought, well, this is a crazy story. I should write it down, and I wrote it down. It was incredibly cinematic. It was like my first thought was that this is so cinematic. This is sort of like like Bollywood level kind of writing, which is
Mhm.
so unrealistic. Um, but again, this is my opinion of it. If I were to show it to someone else, they may think something else of it. They may think that this is good enough to think about maybe. So this was just under 10,000 words. So sort of like a longer short story. But if maybe I could elaborate it into something bigger, I would be interested in doing that. But again, I think once you're comfortable in one genre for writers, it is very difficult to venture into others because first of all they'll be like, oh, I have never written something like this before, and when you do write something like this, then it's like, oh, but it's not good enough.
Mhm.
And these are self-inflicted excuses. I have
Yeah.
no one else to blame but me. Um, I would never think about writing horror or psychological thriller because those aren't genres that I have typically enjoyed.
Okay.
Maybe psychological thriller a little bit, horror absolutely not.
Yeah.
But it's just, I think it's just, whatever you read, you tend to write. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And so then with the book that you're writing now, because you mentioned before that with well, you mentioned to me off camera during our email correspondence that you were previously with like the DreamWork Collective.
yes.
So for the sequel, are you thinking about sticking with them, or are you looking for a traditional publisher?
I think I will have to weigh my options just because, the way that the DreamWork Collective works, it is a hybrid application model. So there is a certain amount of investment that has to come from the author as well. Once you've made that investment, it's definitely a great way to get your foot in the industry. But now I feel like because I have a presence in the industry, maybe I could think about traditional publication. But of course, that again requires a lot of time, a lot of patience, a lot of research as to which of the agents out there would be beneficial, whom I should be contacting, what sort of networks I should be tapping into. So it will be a long-term project, but it's definitely something that I'm going to have to weigh.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And so like where can people find your work online, your website?
So it's available on all of the traditional platforms. So we've got Amazon, we've got Kindle for anyone who reads online. We've got audiobook as well, which I have narrated, so it's going to be in my voice if anyone's into that. Yeah, and the bookstores here as well. So Kinokuniya, Magrudy's, Virgin Megastore. In the UK, there's Waterstones. In the US, it's Barnes and Noble. So pretty much everywhere. So the DreamWork Collective actually has a very good network of distribution as well.
Okay.
So anywhere that you are, you can find a copy.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Amandeep, for
You.
taking the time, coming in, being part of our very first episode. And thanks everyone for tuning in. Like every writing journey has its rough patches, and this is why we're doing this. Your story might help someone else who needs to hear it. So just keep up showing up for yourself for your draft. And yes, thank you so much, Amandeep, for showing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.